When someone disrespects you, your first impulse is to defend, to argue, to demand acknowledgement. But such reactions expose weakness. The true master of power does not seek respect, he engineers it through silence, calculation, and darkness. In this video, you will learn the most ruthless way to turn disrespect into your greatest advantage. Disrespect is not a wound to the ego. It is a signal, a declaration that the other believes you lack the power to command fear or obedience. Most respond like children with rage, confrontation, or desperate pleas for recognition. But those who understand the darker currents of human nature know a better path. In the theater of power, you do not fight disrespect directly. You let it grow, breathe, and then suffocate its source in ways they never anticipated. Today, I will show you how the most cunning rulers, the most feared strategists handle disrespect, not with emotion, but with a blade sharpened by patience, silence, and inevitability. Disrespect is never random. It is always deliberate, always calculated, always revealing. When a man mocks you, interrupts you, or dismisses your worth, he is not merely expressing opinion. He is testing you. He is asking, how much can I get away with? You may think it is small, just a careless comment, a laugh at your expense, a tone sharp with disdain. But these moments are probes. They are the invisible daggers of human interaction. The wise do not see insults as wounds, they see them as reconnaissance. Consider the court of Renaissance Italy. There, every gesture, every word, was a move on the chessboard of survival. A smile could be an alliance, a joke, a veiled threat. When a rival noble, accidentally, neglected to use your title, he was not forgetful. He was measuring how you would respond. If you ignored it, you might appear weak. If you overreacted, you revealed insecurity. Either way, he gathered information. Do you see? Disrespect is less about the words spoken and more about the signal extracted from your reaction. Even today, the principle remains the same. In a workplace, when a colleague interrupts you in front of others, the content of his interruption matters less than the audience watching. Everyone turns their eyes not to him, but to you. Will you crumble? Will you bark like a dog? Or will you hold your silence like a king? Psychology calls this a status test. Human beings, from tribes to corporations, are obsessed with hierarchy. Disrespect is a way of probing whether you deserve your position in the order. The one who disrespects you is playing the role of the challenger, but the true audience is not him. It is the group, the collective mind watching how you handle the spark. Understand this. You are never disrespected in private. Even if it happens in silence, the memory itself becomes an audience in your own mind. You judge yourself by your response. And if you betray weakness, you reinforce weakness. Now, consider the reaction of the inexperienced. They leap to defend themselves with words, drowning in justifications. You cannot speak to me like that. You don't know who I am. Such proclamations are admissions of fragility. For if your power were evident, would you need to announce it? Look at history. Julius Caesar, faced with slander and mockery in the Senate, often remained silent. He understood every outburst of anger would make him look smaller. Instead, he absorbed the insult, studied the one who dared deliver it, and when the moment ripened, he struck, not with words, but with destiny. Those who laughed at him later fell beneath his ambition. Or take another lesson, from the streets rather than palaces. In the world of organized crime, disrespect is never about the words. It is about testing the borders of fear. A small slight, spilling a drink, refusing a handshake, is a probe. Do you still command the shadow of fear, or has it faded? Those who fail to enforce their aura become prey. Those who handle the test with calm menace, choosing their moment, secure their authority for years. So I ask you, when you are disrespected, do you treat it as a wound to your pride, or as intelligence gathered in the field of battle? Every insult tells you who dares to test your boundaries. Every mockery tells you how others perceive your strength, and every reaction you give teaches the world what you are made of. This is why disrespect is never to be taken personally. It is to be taken strategically. The weak man says, "He insulted me, I must fight." The wise man says, He revealed himself, I must wait. Because in power, patience is sharper than anger. Silence is more terrifying than shouts. A measured gaze cuts deeper than any sword. Never forget. Disrespect is not your downfall. It is your diagnostic. It tells you where you stand in the invisible war of status. Those who see it as pain remain slaves to ego. Those who see it as data rise to mastery. But here lies the darker truth. If disrespect is a test of power, then how you choose to respond determines not only how others see you now, but how they will treat you forever. And so, the question becomes, do you confront disrespect at once, or do you allow it to grow, to reveal more, until your retaliation is absolute? When disrespected, your first impulse is always emotional. You want to defend, to explain, to erupt. But tell me, what does that reveal? It reveals that you are vulnerable, that the insult reached your core, that you are reactive, not in control. And in the realm of power, nothing is more fatal than becoming transparent. Think of it, the man who provokes you with mockery is not seeking truth. He is seeking access. If he can awaken your anger, your desperation, your tears, then he owns a key to your inner palace. He knows which strings to pull, and a man whose strings are visible is no ruler, but a puppet. History is filled with kings, generals, and rulers destroyed not by armies, but by their own inability to govern emotion. Consider Alexander, brilliant yet reckless. His fury led him to murder Cletus, one of his most loyal officers, in a drunken rage. That single outburst fractured trust within his ranks. Power lost not by the sword of the enemy, but by his own temper. Now, contrast this with the Venetian statesmen. The councils of Venice were infamous for their cold restraint. Insults were ignored, slander tolerated, because they understood a principle: you must learn emotions are the leash others fasten around your neck. By refusing to react, they denied enemies the satisfaction of control. Their silence was not weakness, it was armor. But let us turn from history to you. Imagine you are in a meeting. A rival mocks your idea, dismissing it with a smirk. Instantly, your blood rises. You want to respond, you want to correct, to cut, to defend your pride. Yet what happens if you do? Everyone sees your agitation. They see your urgency to prove yourself. And in that urgency, they sense weakness. Now imagine you remain still. You say nothing, or better, your lips curve into a faint smile. The silence stretches. The mocker expected your anger, but finds only calm indifference. Suddenly, it is not you under scrutiny, it is him. His words, meant to diminish you, now echo in awkward emptiness. The audience sees desperation not in you but in him. Do you see the power of restraint? Psychology has studied this. Emotional reactivity is a sign of low status. The higher one climbs in dominance, the slower one reacts. Those at the bottom must bark, shout, and prove themselves. Those at the top can afford silence because silence itself speaks. It says, I am untouchable. Your words cannot reach me. There is also a deeper manipulation here. When you deny others the reaction they crave, you force them into discomfort. Humans are wired for feedback. When they throw the stone, they expect the splash. If no splash comes, they become restless, insecure, even paranoid. They wonder what you are planning. They overthink. They expose themselves further. And all because you refuse to hand them your emotions. Remember this, when you react emotionally, you are no longer the strategist. You are the soldier caught in the mud of the battlefield. But when you remain calm, you rise above the field, seeing the entire war with clarity. This is why Machiavelli advised rulers never to be hated, but also never to reveal fear or anger. For the moment you display emotion, you show that you can be wounded. And once they know where you bleed, they will cut there again and again. So the next time disrespect burns your pride, ask yourself, what would serve me more? Vengeance in the moment or dominance in the long game? Consider the wolf and the shepherd. The wolf, hungry, lunges at every provocation, revealing its hunger. The shepherd, patient, watches, waits, and then traps the wolf when it least expects it. Which one survives longer? Your emotions are weapons, yes. But weapons left on the table can be stolen. Better to keep them hidden, to wield them only when the strike will be decisive. To feel nothing is not human. But to reveal nothing, That is power. And yet, if you strip emotion from your response, what remains? Do you ignore all insults? Do you walk through life indifferent to every attack? No, for silence is only one tool. There are moments when it is not enough. Moments when restraint alone will not protect you. That is why you must learn the art of silence not as avoidance, but as a calculated weapon. Silence is not absence. It is presence sharpened into a blade. When disrespected, most people rush to fill the air with words. They justify, explain, demand. But words are noise. Silence, on the other hand, is weight. It bends the air. It unsettles the heart. It turns the aggressor's laughter into unease. Ask yourself what unnerves you more, a man shouting in anger or a man who receives insult and simply stares, unmoved, unblinking. That is the power of silence. In the courts of Florence, silence was a weapon wielded by the cunning. The less one said, the more others speculated. Rivals could not anticipate your moves. Because you had revealed nothing. Words give form to your thoughts, silence leaves them formless, and thus infinite. Consider this: Cesare Borgia, infamous for his ruthless ambition, often allowed others to speak at length in negotiations while he remained quiet. His stillness forced men into discomfort. They spoke more than they intended, revealing secrets, overcommitting, exposing weakness. When at last Borgia spoke, it was not many words, but the strike of a dagger requires only one thrust. Psychology confirms what rulers instinctively knew: humans cannot endure silence. In conversation, a pause longer than a few seconds creates anxiety. The mind rushes to fill the void. And in that rush, people reveal more than they ever planned. Do you see? By speaking less, you control more. Think of a courtroom. The lawyer who objects too quickly appears desperate. The one who allows silence to hang before responding shifts the entire atmosphere. The jury leans forward, waiting. The silence frames the words to come as powerful, even if they are few. Now reflect on your own life. When was the last time someone insulted you and you responded with instant fury? What did that achieve? Nothing. You gave them satisfaction. You gave them control. But imagine if you had answered with silence, a calm, deliberate stillness. Their words would have lost force the moment they struck the empty wall of your restraint. The silence would echo louder than any retort. Silence is also theater. Every audience reads it differently. Some interpret it as patience, others as menace. The uncertainty is the true weapon. They cannot be sure if your silence means forgiveness, contempt, or calculation, and uncertainty breeds fear. Remember, fear is not created by noise. It is created by imagination, and imagination thrives most in silence. But silence is not merely defensive. It is offensive. By withholding your voice, you deny others the clarity they crave. You let them stew in doubt, in paranoia, in suspicion. They begin to invent explanations, each darker than the last. And often, the punishments they invent in their minds are harsher than anything you could have said. This is why leaders across history, kings, popes, even generals, have practiced the art of strategic silence. Napoleon once said that the greatest general is the one who imposes his will without lifting a sword. Silence is such a sword. Consider a modern example. In business negotiations, the party that speaks less holds more power. A salesman desperate to talk reveals his eagerness. A buyer who simply listens, nods, and pauses forces the salesman to lower his price, to sweeten the deal, to betray his own desperation. Silence manipulates because silence pressures, yet you must wield it wisely. Silence without intention can appear weak. It must be framed, deliberate, controlled. It must radiate that you are choosing not to speak, not that you are incapable of speech. Ask yourself, do you control your silence, or does your silence control you? Because silence is not withdrawal, it is strategy. It is the decision to act without words, to fight without noise, to strike without announcing the blade. The weak man speaks to fill space. The strong man allows space to work for him. And here lies the darker truth. Once you master silence, you will learn that the less you speak, the more others will listen when you finally choose to break it. Your words will no longer be common. They will be rare, heavy, and unforgettable. But if silence can be so powerful, then why would anyone ever speak? Why not cloak yourself forever in wordless authority? Because silence alone cannot win the war. It must be paired with timing, with manipulation, with the moment when restraint transforms into action. Most believe that disrespect must be crushed the moment it appears. They are wrong. Sometimes the highest form of power is not to punish, but to permit. Yes, you heard me. Permit it. Allow the insult to breathe, to grow, to spread. Why? Because every insult is a rope, and the fool who throws it often hangs himself with it. Think of it this way. An insult is not a sword cutting you. It is bait exposing the arrogance of the one who wields it. If you pounce too quickly, you end the game before it reveals its treasure. But if you wait, if you allow them to believe they have struck you without consequence, they will become bold. They will reveal themselves fully. History is full of rulers who mastered this art. Consider Queen Elizabeth I of England. She was mocked for being unmarried, dismissed as weak, and constantly tested by her courtiers. Did she rage at every slight? No, she tolerated their whispers. She let them speak freely, knowing that the more they revealed, the more she understood their true loyalties. And when the time came, her retaliation was precise. Those who thought her silence was weakness discovered it was surveillance. Do you see the strategy? Disrespect can be converted into intelligence. Psychology names this the principle of overextension. When people believe they can get away with small attacks, they escalate. They push further, exposing their ambition, their envy, their insecurities. Each insult becomes a confession. And if you are patient, you gather not just evidence, but leverage. Imagine the workplace again. A rival undermines you in a meeting. You could snap back, but instead you nod, as if unaffected. Days later, he does it again. Then again. Soon everyone notices, not your silence, but his pattern. He has revealed himself as petty, insecure, unprofessional. You do not need to say a word, the group judges him for you. His reputation decays while yours grows in quiet strength. This is the art of weaponizing tolerance. By allowing disrespect to continue, you make the insulter his own executioner. But it goes deeper. When you allow someone to insult you without punishment, you create a psychological trap. They believe you are weak. They lower their guard. They reveal secrets in your presence, convinced you are harmless. And then, when you strike, it is not just punishment. It is annihilation. The ancient Romans understood this perfectly. Senators who opposed Julius Caesar often mocked him, thinking he was too indulgent, too forgiving. Caesar let them talk. He gathered their names. He studied their alliances. And when he crossed the Rubicon, when he declared war on the Senate's corruption, he crushed not shadows but exposed enemies. Their arrogance, tolerated for years, became the foundation of his dominance. Now, consider your own life. What if the next time someone mocked you, you resisted the urge to react? What if you let them repeat it, louder, bolder, until others could see their true nature? What if you allowed them to build their own gallows with every word? Would that not serve you more than a quick outburst that only proves they got under your skin? Patience is not passivity. It is the higher form of control. It is knowing that every insult tolerated is a future weapon forged. But beware, there is danger too. If you tolerate too much without strategy, you risk being seen as weak. The secret is not silence alone. It is silence paired with calculation. You must allow the insult to grow only until it reaches its peak. Then, and only then, you strike. Think of it like hunting. The predator does not leap at the first rustle in the grass. He waits. He lets the prey step fully into the open, unaware, exposed. Only then does he lunge, ensuring the kill. Your enemies are no different. Their insults are footsteps. Let them walk further into the clearing. Let them believe the path is safe. And then, end it. So, I ask you, are you willing to let your pride suffer for a moment so that your vengeance may be complete? Or are you a slave to your ego, desperate for immediate satisfaction? The answer determines whether you remain a pawn in the game of power, or its master. But once you've baited your enemies into overexposing themselves, how do you deliver the response that not only punishes, but instills permanent fear? The greatest mistake in handling disrespect is to strike too soon. It feels satisfying in the moment, yes, but satisfaction is not power. Timing is power. A quick retaliation may sting your enemy, but it will not scar them. They may recover, laugh, even grow bolder. But a strike that comes after silence, after patience, after calculation, this is the strike that destroys not only their body, but their spirit. Think of the chessboard. The amateur leaps at the first opportunity to capture a pawn. The master ignores pawns. He maneuvers, waits, sacrifices, until the trap closes around the king. Only then does he strike, and the board itself becomes a grave. So too with disrespect. You must resist the urge to answer immediately. You must wait until the moment when your retaliation not only restores your standing, but elevates it, leaving others terrified to ever test you again. History proves this truth. Consider the Medici of Florence. For decades, they endured rivals who mocked their banking origins, dismissing them as merchants pretending to be nobles. Did the Medici lash out at every insult? No, they bided their time. They accumulated wealth, influence, and allies. And when they finally struck, it was not with words. It was with total domination. Their enemies disappeared, not in fiery arguments, but in the silence of exile, prison, or the grave. Do you see? A delayed strike is not weakness. It is theater. It is patience transforming into inevitability. Psychology calls this delayed gratification. But in power, it is more than that. It is delayed destruction. You withhold the blow not because you cannot deliver it, but because you want the stage set perfectly. The witnesses gathered, the enemy exposed, the ground prepared. Then, when the strike comes, it feels not like an act of anger but an act of justice. Imagine this in your own life. A colleague mocks you in front of others. You do not react. You remain calm. Days pass, weeks pass. The same colleague grows careless, arrogant, thinking you are harmless. Then the day comes. Perhaps a crucial project, perhaps a public decision, and you expose their incompetence with precision. You do not shout. You simply reveal, at the perfect moment, their flaws to everyone watching. The same mouths that once laughed at you now laugh at them. This is the essence of the calculated strike. It is not personal. It is public. It transforms an insult into a demonstration. It shows not only your enemy, but everyone else, what happens when you are crossed. But let us be clear. The calculated strike is not about cruelty for its own sake. It is about deterrence. The goal is not merely to punish one person. It is to send a message to all. A strike delivered at the right moment becomes a legend. It whispers into every ear. This is what happens when you dare. Julius Caesar understood this well. He forgave many enemies, allowed them to live and thrive. But when he did retaliate, he chose his timing with surgical precision. His executions and exiles were not random. They were staged. They showed Rome what defiance would cost. Even outside politics, the principle remains. In relationships, in business, in every hierarchy, those who lash out immediately are seen as petty. Those who wait, observe, and strike only when the conditions are perfect, these are remembered as dangerous. Ask yourself, are you reacting, or are you orchestrating? Because every strike has a ripple. A reckless strike ripples back onto you, painting you as insecure, unstable, or cruel. But a calculated strike ripples outward, painting you as inevitable, unshakable, untouchable. The art lies in knowing when the insult has ripened. Too soon, and it looks like anger. Too late, and it looks like weakness. But at the perfect moment, when the enemy is exposed, when the witnesses are present, when the silence has built unbearable tension, the strike lands with devastating clarity. And when it does not simply defeat, it defines. So I leave you with a question. Will you squander your power on immediate revenge, or will you master the art of waiting, so that your retaliation is not just punishment, but prophecy? Because the darkest path is still ahead, the path where disrespect is not merely avenged, but transformed into a lesson so final, so crushing, that no one dares to repeat it. There are two kinds of punishment. The kind that silences an insult for a day, and the kind that silences all insults forever. Which one do you think commands true power? If you wish to master disrespect, You must understand it is not enough to defend yourself, not enough to retaliate in equal measure. The highest form of control is to make an example so devastating that no one dares test you again. Fear is not created by words. It is created by demonstration. History offers endless lessons. Consider Vlad of Wallachia, remembered as Vlad the Impaler. When envoys refused to remove their hats in his presence, he did not argue. He did not scold. He nailed their hats to their skulls. Brutal, yes. Excessive, yes, but effective, undeniably. News of that act traveled faster than his armies. Few ever forgot to bow again. Extreme, perhaps. But it reveals a principle you must absorb. Punishment must not merely balance the insult. It must outweigh it so heavily that no one else even considers repeating it. Now, let us step away from blood and iron and into subtler realms. In the courts of Europe, rulers who tolerated small insults risked rebellion. But the clever ones chose a single offender, one whose punishment would echo through the corridors. A duke humiliated publicly, stripped of lands, exiled with nothing. The others watched, they whispered, and they obeyed. Psychology explains why this works. Humans learn less from lectures and more from consequences. The brain remembers not what it is told, but what it fears. When someone insults you, and you punish lightly, you encourage repetition. But when you deliver a response that is unforgettable, the memory itself becomes your guard. Now, imagine your own life. Suppose someone mocks you openly. You could return the insult, yes, but that makes you their equal, trading barbs like children in a schoolyard. Instead, what if you waited, and then, at the moment of your choosing, you dismantled their entire standing? You do not merely bruise their pride, you fracture their reputation, their alliances, their image, and you do it in such a way that everyone sees. That is how disrespect becomes fatal. It is not just about silencing the offender. It is about writing a story that circulates through the minds of all who might one day consider crossing you. But beware, this requires precision. If your punishment seems petty, it will reflect poorly on you. If it seems excessive, but executed with elegance, it will elevate your legend. The difference lies in framing. Consider this: when you retaliate, are you seen as angry, or are you seen as inevitable? The inevitable ruler terrifies not by his passion, but by his cold certainty. He is not provoked. He is not reactive. He is deliberate, and that makes every punishment feel larger than life. A modern example in business: some leaders tolerate gossip until it becomes dangerous. Then they choose a scapegoat, firing one person not in secrecy, but in spectacle. They do not whisper, they make the act visible. And in doing so, they remind everyone that betrayal has a cost. Notice, the punishment was not random. It was chosen to instill memory. You must do the same. When someone disrespects you, ask, how can I turn this moment into a warning, not only to them, but to all? How do I craft a punishment so vivid that it becomes a story others repeat in hushed tones? Because in truth, punishment is not about justice. It is about theater. The audience is always larger than the offender. The crowd is watching, always measuring whether you can be tested, whether your silence means weakness, whether your forgiveness means fragility. Show them once, just once, that disrespect carries a fatal cost, and you will not need to repeat the lesson often. But here is the danger. If you make disrespect fatal, you cannot retreat afterward. You cannot show mercy tomorrow. For once you have carved fear into the hearts of others, you must live as the figure they now believe you to be. Can you endure that weight? Can you carry the crown of inevitability without letting it slip? For the darkest truth is this: once you decide to make disrespect fatal, you no longer punish individuals. You sculpt your legend, and legends, once written, cannot be undone. Control is most effective when it is invisible. Chains made of steel provoke rebellion. Chains woven from psychology are worn willingly. The mind that believes it acts freely is the easiest to rule. What greater power exists than guiding a person's choices while they thank you for the privilege? History shows this truth. Kings ruled not only with armies, but with symbols. Priests held sway not by force, but by belief. Merchants grew empires not through swords, but through trust. You see, control does not shout. It whispers. It hides behind suggestion, behind timing, behind silence. And those who fail to understand this become puppets without ever seeing the strings. Now ask yourself, are you the one pulling or the one being pulled? If you seek to sharpen your mind further, leave your thoughts below. Subscribe, if you dare, for more strategies drawn from the shadows of power. And share this with those who think they cannot be controlled. Because they already are.